Chairman, thank you. Thank you, and Senator Tester for conducting this hearing. Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here. I join both the ranking member and the chairman in expressing my gratitude for your continued service to those in uniform, and I appreciate the job that you're doing at the Department of Veterans Affairs. I'll have a chance in Senator Bozeman's Appropriations Subcommittee here in a few days to have more conversations about the spending and the budget recommendations. I have a couple of things that I think are timely that I want to ask you today while I have this chance. First of all, I'd like to highlight for you, in 2014, we authored legislation. We're now working with Senator Brown of Ohio in furthering this legislation, but the National Academy of Medicine was required to do a toxic exposure analysis to determine if there's any medical and scientific evidence related to, or whether there needs to be further study on this topic of the relationship between affliction, problems, now challenges that following generations of the serviceman or woman now face as a result of that toxic exposure. And we look forward to continuing to find the answer to that question. There may be a whole nother generation. It saddens me because I can't imagine anyone serve their country thinking they may harm their children or their grandchildren by their service, but that very well may be the case, and we're working to get the medical and scientific evidence to demonstrate that. I also want to highlight a piece of legislation that Senator Tester led, and I joined him in introducing, related to mental health and suicide prevention. And I look forward to getting input from all my colleagues with Senator Tester's leadership on this topic.
That's the reserve and guard issue.
It's actually, there's two of them. That is one of them, and in addition to that, the Commander John Scott Hannon Veterans Mental Health and Suicide Prevention Act. John Scott Hannon being a veteran who lived in the state of Montana. For my two questions on the timeliness of this hearing, staff of this committee, the House committee, and the staff of our individual senators on the committees met with your staff in regard to the Veterans Hearing Aid Access and Assistance Act. For as poorly as Senator Tester and I get along, this is another one that he and I sponsored. It was passed into law in December of 2016. And the takeaway from that meeting, well, first of all, I should indicate that legislation in 2016, the law mandates that the Department of Veterans Affairs determine criteria for hearing aid specialists, then with the goal of integrating them into the care of veterans that the VA serves. But the unfortunate circumstance is that since 2016, we can find no evidence of the VA taking any steps to implement that mandate. And the meetings that I think I would describe the takeaway as little interest in meeting that mandate. And I highlight, and the reason it's timely is that we ask for a response from VA officials by today's hearing, knowing that you would be here, and we've received none to date. Perhaps Dr. Stone, he appears to be interested in talking about this conversation.
Senator, thank you. I appreciate it. And I was unaware of the letter. If we have not responded, you have my apologies. We will correct that today.
I'd intended to send a letter. We didn't send a letter. It was a conversation with officials at the VA saying, okay, but the Secretary is going to be here on Tuesday. Could you please get back to us by then? Otherwise, we need to raise this topic with the Secretary.
So you happen to be looking at a hearing compromised veteran from my combat service. So I'm deeply appreciative of what the VA has brought to me and my family as we've sought care for by hearing loss due to combat. So I'm well aware of the issues that you bring up. And let me say to you that we last year performed over 1 million visits for hearing compromised veterans with our audiologists and our technicians. We have continued to grow that. We refer out about 38,000 visits a year, and we appreciate the legislation on hearing aid specialists. But the question is, do we need to move into the specialist area? Clearly, you and I may have a different understanding of the role of the specialist. Today, I have enough audiologists and enough technicians in order to provide that vast majority of the care that's needed, including less than a 10-day waiting period in order for veterans to come in for care or for their appliances. In addition, we have an under 2-week waiting period in order to take outside prescriptions and fill them on behalf of the veterans.
Let me suggest this, Dr. Stone, that maybe with Senator Tester and I's staff, we could have this conversation in the 0 seconds I have left. Mr. Secretary, I'm in Emporia, Kansas on Saturday, 4 days from now. Emporia has a CBOC. The CBOC has 2 days of service, rarely has a physician, has a mid-level practitioner. The department, the Eastern Division in Kansas, has announced the closure of that CBOC. One would expect me to be angry about the closure of that CBOC. I am hopeful that with the closure of the CBOC and conversations with the VA, that the Mission Act now provides additional opportunities for care for veterans, because we go from a 2-day CBOC with often no physician and 1 mid-level, to an opportunity for a multitude of community resources being available to those veterans in that area. I'm going to meet with your folks in Kansas are joining me in Emporia on Saturday. What message would you like for me to deliver about the opportunities that Mission or the VA now can provide?
Mission Act is about veteran-centric care. It's not about protecting the institution or guarding the status quo. It is about giving that veteran the option to be the guardian of his own or her own future. And for rural America, offering the widest aperture possible on access to medical care is meeting the attention of this committee. And as long as we keep the veterans' health at the center of everything that we do, then the system will work.
I will convey that to those veterans who join me on Saturday. Mr. Chairman, thank you.